Did you play any other time?
No.
Were you on an AAU team? Were you on any?
Ernie, I think AAU is the worst thing ever happened to the world right now.
Hasn't it gotten to the point, Smitty, where it's out of control? Like
yes.
The stories over the past 10 to 15 years about AAU basketball and how much it's ruined the youth that are coming up playing the game. How do you rein it in from where it is now? Because you're talking about one solo act about getting involved as a parent and somebody you trust, but it seems like it's too big.
Well, I will say
to solve.
大家好，我是篮球的伦伦。在讲到发展一项运动时，我们常会强调体制的重要性。有好的体制、好的训练系统，才能训练出顶尖的运动员，帮助这项运动成长茁壮。美国虽然贵为篮球强国，但在业余或者青少年篮球训练体制上却有相当大的缺失。今天我们就来听传奇球星们对 AAU 美国最大的业余运动协会的看法，听听看为什么他们觉得 AAU 在阻碍青少年球员的发展，甚至让许多有光明未来的球员在还没发光发热前，就成为另一颗坠落的流星。
Conversation here on NBA TV we like to call Open Court because that's the name of the show. I'm Ernie Johnson. Down here, Chris Webber. You went a little too early. Give it to me again.
Oh, catch it.
Whatever. Bones Berry is next to Chris Webber.
Don't try to do that.
No, don't, please. And please, don't you try any of that.
The Dougie, yeah.
Oh,
Teach me how to Chucky. Teach me how to Chucky. Teach me how to. You're like you having a seizure.
As we call 911, we introduce Reggie Miller to the proceedings. Next to Reggie, we have Steve Kerr. And then rounding out the panel, both Steve Smith and Shaquille O'Neal, back for another rousing episode of Open Court. So things have changed in the way kids are brought up playing basketball these days, especially at the high school ranks. Back when you were coming up, you played at Leeds High School.
Yes.
Did you play any other time?
No.
Were you on an AAU team? Were you on any?
Ernie, I think AAU is the worst thing ever happened to the world.
Has there have been a lot of bad things happening in the world?
That's how bad AAU basketball is, Ernie. It's making these kids play 3 or 4 games a day, selling them to colleges. It's so unethical. You know, these kids shouldn't be playing as many games. They shouldn't be sold like property to different colleges. I have a serious issue with AAU, obviously. You know, I don't think these kids, I think all of us agree, you want to be the best player you can be. It ain't about trying to get all this talent together and just travel around and make money and all go to the same colleges or go to college for 1 year. It's just important to try to be the best basketball player you can be.
Okay, so if you do not agree that it's the worst thing that's ever happened in civilization, please raise your hand and tell me what's the redeeming part about AAU basketball, Smitty?
You know what's
you played AAU basketball.
I did, but it was different. We won a national championship, but I would probably say we played 15 games that entire summer. I mean, I don't know how many, but it wasn't more than 15 games, including the national championship. The bad part about it is, where else do these kids get a chance to play? I'm with Chuck. I don't like it, but my kids play AAU. But because there's not a lot of other places where they can go play. There's no recreation centers where I played. They got competition where kids can go play. There's not a lot of leagues, summer leagues, like St. Cecilia, in different places where teams can go play. I will advise, though, if you let your kid play AAU, you have to be involved. You know, you have to be involved.
To what extent? I mean, you're not not coaching the team, right?
You're not coaching the team, but you better make sure you hire somebody that you trust as a parent. For me, so I have an AAU team. Just started it.
Trust in which way, though?
At every sense of trust, not only as a basketball knowledge, but being a great example as a man, you know, or a woman that's coaching, just as a human being. I mean, there's some AAU coaches out there that, you know, it's not for the right reasons. And I think AAU is starting to get a little bit better. I think you definitely have to start to look at background checks. Some of these guys got to know CPR. They don't have a clue on just how to coach, how to be around kids. And we've lost that, though, because when I grew up, it was my elementary school coach who taught me how to play, who we just came up to the school and played pickup, junior high, high school, where you can just go play basketball. These kids don't have those opportunities right now.
Hasn't it gotten to the point, Smitty, where it's out of control? Like
yes.
The stories over the past 10 to 15 years about AAU basketball and how much it's ruined the youth that are coming up playing the game. How do you rein it in from where it is now? Because you're talking about one solo act, about getting involved as a parent and somebody you trust, but it seems like it's too big.
Well, I will say,
to solve.
I will say, Brent, there's a whole bunch of great stories out there, but this is the coach who's not gathering up all the China talent and win national championship. When you have the great coaches and people who care, they're probably not winning the national championship. They're probably not traveling around as much. They have a team, they play locally, or they'll go a couple games here and there, but they're not going to be a team in Atlanta that's going to grab 5 kids from Chicago. So you're not going to win unless you gather so much talent. So then you're not talking about those stories. They don't get glorified, the coaches who are doing it the right way.
And what do you think their motivation is? For the coaches that you do
money,
not like in AAU?
Money and greed.
Well, money, is it positions? Is it
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But that's actually part of the money thing. Yeah. You see it all the time where it's a package deal for the best players. Like you see guys, some of these guys are coaches, and you're like, and listen, I'm involved now that I'm in the college game. I know some of the college players, coaches, and they always talk about, well, I can't sign this kid because his coach wants a job. And then the shoe companies, they're steering kids to certain schools, which makes it even more corrupt. So it's not a level playing field. Listen, they're going to make money on these kids. But we have a moral obligation to make sure these kids get their education.
I'm not quite sure there's a governing body for the AAU. I mean, is there an oversight that someone oversees? And what's sad about AAU now is when we were all growing up, playing high school basketball was the most important thing. You wanted your high school basketball team to be ranked and to win a state championship and so forth. Now these young blue chip superstars, AAU is the big thing now. That's where most coaches find their talent is going to these AAU tournaments as opposed to going to your high school and watching you play. Now they're interviewing your AAU coach as opposed to your high school coach. And I think that's what's lost with these young players is not only are these coaches, AAU coaches, skimming from the top from the shoe company, but they're trying to get as you mentioned, a job at the college level and then to further advance to try to get to the professional level, all while this young kid suffers along the way.
And you see high school teams built now, not really on where you're growing up and where your district is, but how your AAU team can within the guidelines say, yeah, you live there and you can play there, and it's getting a little crazy. So C-Web, fix it.
That's tough. You got to fix people first. You know, it's a lot of one thing I think is a result of AAU is bad coaching. And you see guys coming in the NBA, because now if I'm your cousin, I'm Shaq's cousin, hey, big fella, you know, you got to look out for me. Let me coach a team with you, and I know nothing about basketball. That's one of the things I've been seeing, you know. So I think, you know, when I play AAU, and Steve, this is probably maybe true for you coming from Detroit, our coaches were like our father figures. Like, you know, Mr. Montgomery's 83 years old, and Curtis Hervey, those are old guys. So we had to do homework at the house. We would get in trouble. We'd sneak girls over the house. It was like a second parent. And so for a lot of these guys, I see them having buddies. And I don't think it's ever good to be 15 years old with the 25-year-old guy who's your buddy, who doesn't teach you about life, doesn't teach you about the game, but basically is teaching you about the guilt and how to have hanger-ons and all those things, because that's what it becomes, because some of these guys have no right coaching, some of these guys have no right being around the players. And
well, unfortunately, Ernie, I think it's only going to get worse because, you know, these coaches want so much power. They want so much prestige by using the kids. And, you know, we all make good points, but, you know, the big companies have a lot to do with it also. Like, you know, like if you're like a local kid in the neighborhood, and you're a star, and, you know, your AAU coach can get you the new Jordans. That's how the coach is going to lure you in. So now that he got you in, you got the new Jordan. He's not really paying you, but in a sense he is paying you. He give you the new Jordan sweatsuit, he give you the new Jordan. So now, and then college coaches have access through the AAU coaches. And, like you said, they're not going to the high schools anymore. They're going to these AAU coaches. So, unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to get fixed. I think it's going to get worse.
Why does it continue to thrive when it has the obvious flaws and the obvious red flags that jump out at all of y'all?
Because it's all about winning.
Well, I don't think there's a governing body, not that I know of. I coached my son's team for about 3 years, and we would play teams where the same kid who played on a different team earlier is now playing on another team in the afternoon. But the biggest problem I saw was that nobody practiced. Nobody practices in AAU.
Practice? We talking about practice?
You just go from one tournament to the next. And I think one of the reasons we don't have any real low post players anymore in the league is because developing a low post game is the hardest thing to do in basketball. You can dribble around and stuff and shoot and work on your game, but to develop a low post game takes a ton of work. And all the guys who are coming up through the system now, they never go through that process of developing a post game. And so all the time spent traveling from one tournament to the next without any practice time, it stunts the growth of the basketball players themselves.
And children are always a product of what they see. When I was growing up, David Robinson, it was Patrick Ewing, and a little bit of Kareem. So that's why I wanted to play in the post. Now, we don't, like you said, we don't really have a lot of post presence. That's why now today the game is suffering because the kids, after me, after you, they're not really seeing a lot of post players. They're seeing the Euro post player, guys that can step out, pick and pop, shoot the jumper. So I agree with you, Steve.
It's an installment of Open Court we call School Days, and it will continue.
所以 AAU 到底是什么？它的全名是 Amateur Athletic Union 业余体育协会，我们可以把它视为一个组织举办青少年运动赛事的协会。这要特别强调 ，AAU 以前的确是以业余运动为主业的协会，但主要负责训练跟管理参加奥运的运动员。不过呢，1978年美国通过了业余运动法令，把管理奥运运动员的责任归分给所属运动的协会。从此以后 ，AAU 基本上可以被视为一个不受政府规范的私人组织。他们目前大约有70万个会员，举达多半35种运动的比赛。最出名的篮球会按照年纪分组，7岁到20岁以下都可以参与。光是南加州就有大约1000支 AAU 球队，许多明星球员像是 Kyrie Irving、Zion Williamson， 甚至 LeBron 的大儿子 Bronny 都曾打过 AAU。2011年，3大运动用品厂牌 Nike、Adidas、Under Armour 在看到 AAU 的成功后，也组织了各自的私人篮球联盟。总计去年在 NBA 有出赛的近500名球员中，曾在美国本土打过 AAU 或3大厂商私人联盟的有高达 85%。在考虑到国际球员通常不会高中就在美国本土出赛，美国籍球员几乎全部都是从 AAU 或3大球鞋厂的私人联盟出身的。那虽然名义上 AAU 是非营利组织，但实际上 AAU 在现今已经发展成为一个有无比巨大经济规模的企业，而这也是一切问题的根源。我们现在说 AAU 的好处，运动员能成长茁壮的最大关键就是必须面对高强度的比赛。在公立的系统下，球员跟球队们受到学区或者是地域性的限制，无法组织出最高强度的比赛。比如说，一个有很高天赋的球员，因为父母工作或者是居住地的关系，只能就读不是把篮球当重点项目发展的普通公立学校。就好比一个很有潜力的孩子跟一群很普通的孩子，都像全队都是体保生的学校，这样的比赛当然不会有太高的强度或竞争，而这个很有潜力的孩子的发展当然也就有限。AAU 的好处就在于它不受政府法律规范，没有一般的地区、学区组队限制。其实它就是一个超大规模的私人体育协会，只要你有实力，一定会有 AAU 的球队要你。实力强、比较有规模的 AAU 球队，几乎可以算是半个职业队的规模，坐长途巴士甚至飞机去跟其他强队比赛，上 ESPN 的全国转播都是家常便饭。那么问题就来了，既然 AAU 名义上是业余联盟，教练也是不知心的，钱从哪里来？最简单的方法当然就是找像 Nike、Adidas 等大厂商当赞助商，有了赞助商就会有钱，有钱就好办事。但一个关键问题就来了，除了说拿人手软，拿了赞助商的好处后，教练当然就有战绩压力。本来应该是强调球员身心优先、技能其次的学生篮球，变成一切以战绩优先。你有学业、感情、生活上的困扰吗？去找个心灵咨询师吧，孩子。AAU 这里重视的是战绩。肯定有人会说，有强度的学生运动本来就已经不重视这些非场上成绩方面的事情了。那我们就来讨论 AAU 更大的问题。我们前面提到过 ，AAU 常常是跨市甚至跨州招募球员， 在平日要把球员们召集在一起几乎是不可能的事。也因为这样，有很多 AAU 球队是根本不练球的，顶多在大赛事前3-4天展开短期集训。应该强调球员基础，帮以后打下稳定根基的学生篮球变成了短期赛事集中营，球员根本就没有足够的训练。
Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
除此之外，因为 AAU 的经济效益相当的大，对球员招募自然非常重视。但反过来说，这种高强度的竞争造成了球员的流动性非常的高。就天赋高的孩子来说，几乎时时刻刻都有人在等你加入他的球队。不喜欢这个教练或队友吗？来我们这边吧，孩子。球员的高流动性以及背后巨大的利益，造成了教练们不会想，也不能确实的发展球员们的篮球基础。当这个孩子下个赛季不知道还会不会在你的球队时，你会想要教他需要长时间基础累积，但以后很实用的低位脚步，还是教他能迈高就迈高，能灌就灌。以上的这些前提还是建立在教练是真心想训练球员的篮球技巧上。AAU 的过度商业化，让很多教练根本是醉翁之意不在酒，对发展小球员的篮球技巧或身心健康一点兴趣都没有。实际上的角色更接近经纪人或领队，只专心在从小球员身上获取名或利。像 Weber 提到的，想要真心辅导、指引孩子的教练，更是寥寥无几。因为以上提到这些原因，许多球员都曾公开批评 AAU。2015年 Kobe 就曾说过 ，AAU 很烂、很糟、太蠢，他们完全不教孩子们怎么打球。结果就是一大堆大个子球员整天东运西运，但连最基本的低位单打都不会，他们完全没有基本的篮球观念，这太蠢了。除了 Kobe 以外，很多球员对 AAU 都提出过类似的批评。我们不可否认 ，AAU 确实为球员们提供了其他制度下无法提供的高强度比赛，也给了一些在原本制度下不会有机会的球员一个舞台。但从篮球的长远发展来说 ，AAU 的存在真的好吗？我对我们国内的高中篮球 HBL 能办得这么有声有色，抱着一种矛盾的心情。一方面，我觉得基层篮球发展的好，对整个运动环境当然是好的。另一方面，我又担心让球员们在青少年时期就受到如此大的关注，会害了他们。好在跟美国不同的是，国内的教育是高压式，高中球队里教练们的权力几乎是绝对的。这一点我虽然不是完全认同，但在避免年轻球员们因为受到过度的关注而自我膨胀，进而迷失自我，应该是有不错的功效。AAU 创造出来的经济利益是毋庸置疑的，但我们真正该思考的是，对学生篮球来说，是否有比金钱更重要的事？那讲到学生篮球，国内其实也是有很多人在默默做对的事情，希望让环境变得更好。比如说今天的合作厂商 Go Hoops，Go Hoops 是让球队球员能在平台上保存所有的赛程、数据、影片、照片。球员们不只能交流比赛表现，还能相互联络，甚至还可以在 App 上取得由电脑为你量身定做的赛事精华影片。透过订阅以多样化的广告模式，未来还可以在 App 上下载个人比赛高光。Go Hoops 的连结我会放在影片资讯栏还有留言区中，感到兴趣的朋友们欢迎去看一看。今天的影片到这边就结束了，非常谢谢各位的收看，我们下次见，拜拜。